Hello my friends, my name is Rich and welcome to Greatest Rock and Metal. On Greatest Rock and Metal I talk about what are for me the greatest rock and metal albums, gigs, bands of all time, based on listening to thousands of albums and going to hundreds of gigs over many years. If you like what you see today, please press the red button to subscribe to this channel. Very easy to do and it's free. Okay, so today is part 2 in my ranking of the AC/DC studio discography. Hope you enjoyed part 1. If you haven't seen part 1 already, please check it out, where I rank albums 16 up to 11. So that means today we start with number 10. And we go way back to 1976. And the album Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Dirty Deeds. First and foremost, a great title for a song and an album. Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Love it. So, this album, number 10 on my rankings. And I was going to say something there that would have spoiled the previous episode. So, in case some of you haven't seen that, I'm not going to say it. So, let me start again. So, number 10. Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. 1976, the singer here is the original singer Bon Scott. And, well, not the original, but the classic original singer Bon Scott. And good album. Very good album. It would have been a better album in my opinion if the song Jailbreak, which was recorded at the same time, had also appeared on the international version. Because again, I should mention, if you've not seen the previous episode, I am ranking the international versions of all the albums. There are some Australian versions that were done early in their career where the track listing is a little bit different. And on the Australian version, the song Jailbreak appeared, and Jailbreak is a brilliant song. But unfortunately it's not on here. So it drops it down just a touch in the rankings in my opinion, because that song doesn't appear. But what does appear are some great songs. So like I did on the previous episode, I will pick my 2 favourite tracks from each album. As I've already said, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap is one of my picks. And the next track I will pick is a more mellowy type of song for AC/DC. And it's the track Ride On. Ride On. Very mellow, bluesy, real bluesy track, Ride On. And a great song. And there's many classic songs on this album that still pop up in the set list today, such as Rocker or Problem Child. Might get an airing every now and again on in the AC/DC set list today. So that's my number 10, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Number 9, we're going to 1995 for number 9, and it is the album Ball Breaker. Now, this was the first time in a while that AC/DC pulled in a big name producer to produce one of their albums since the days of Mutt Lange and in the late 70s, early 80s. And although many people will be surprised that I've ranked this so highly, I think the choice again of a producer, the producer was the famous Rick Rubin. And I think it does make a difference. I think the quality of this album is far greater than many people give it credit for. And it also kind of revived again, helped to revive again the career of AC/DC that had taken a bit of a dip, only a bit of a dip, in the mid to late 80s, and they had a previous album, Razor's Edge, which had had some really big tracks on it, and in fact, to be honest, just remembering, Razor's Edge also had a big name producer in Bruce Fairbairn on it, and but Rick Rubin was a real well-known character at these particular times, especially for his work he'd done with Slayer. So Ball Breaker, favourite 2 tracks on this, Hard as a Rock, brilliant sexual lyrics from AC/DC once again. You get me hard as a rock. Doesn't go like that. I don't know why I even made my own melody for that then. And the other track I would pick is Cover You in Oil. Speaks for itself, I think. So, and there's great tracks on this. I also love the videos that were done for these songs, especially the Hard as a Rock video is hilarious. If you've not seen the video for Hard as a Rock, you've got to check that one out. So, number 9, Ball Breaker. Let's take a bit of a break and have a look at rock t-shirts by the sea. Hope you enjoyed that. Okay, so number 8 on the list is an album that I also kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, from 1990, the Razor's Edge album. This really, as I've kind of alluded to earlier, really put AC/DC back on the map, because it had some massive songs on it, massive songs. No more massive than one of my 2 picks from this album, Thunderstruck. It's been in the set list for every tour ever since this particular tour, and the tour itself, the Razor's Edge tour, was extremely popular, playing stadiums all over the world. You can see a tour shirt from over there, and Thunderstruck, what can we say about Thunderstruck? A brilliant song, and even better live, to get everyone singing along with that na 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 thunder. Superb, absolutely superb. It's incredible really when you think how consistent AC/DC are at delivering such high quality single songs on every album. Yes, in the previous episode, the part 1 episode of this, I've said there's some weak albums in their discography, but even so, every time, every album has got at least 2 brilliant songs on it. The other brilliant song on this album I would choose is the track, Are You Ready? Are you ready for a good time? I love Are You Ready? It's one of my favourite AC/DC songs. I just think it's a great track to get you in the mood to being ready. If you're going out and you're going partying somewhere, I think this is a track that will really get you in the mood, and saying, are you ready for a good time? Yes, I am indeed. Number 8, the Razor's Edge album. Great album, great album. Okay, number 7. And we're fast forwarding now another 30 years. Listen, 30 years after the Razor's Edge album. Think about that. 30 years after the Razor's Edge album, AC/DC produced the album which is at number 7 on my rankings, their brand new album, Power Up. Let's have a little listen to a bit of Power Up. Whoop. And let's just knock one of them down. Here we go. Shot in the Dark. I hope YouTube don't block me for this. I don't normally play any music, but that's such a great riff, it's got to be listened to. So, Shot in the Dark, one of the tracks I would choose from the Power Up album. Great way to introduce the world to AC/DC again after they've been quiet for so long, and incredible that after such a long career they can come back with an album as strong as this. Wow, it was really tough to choose just 2 favourite tracks from this album. As I've said, Shot in the Dark is one of them, and it's, you know, I could pick so many, there's so many good songs on here, but the other track I'm going to pick is the opening track, Realize. Now, one thing I got to say about this album, when I first heard it, I thought, okay, it's actually, yeah, good AC/DC album, what I expected, kind of. But this really grew on me, and this has powered up the rankings, no pun intended, powered up the rankings as to when I first thought about creating these episodes, because every time I listen to it, the album just gets stronger and stronger in my opinion, and Realize was a track like that. Many of the critics when this album first came out were like, oh, Realize, brilliant. I didn't get it at first, but now it's actually my favourite track on the album. I have realised that Realize is great. So there you go, number 7, the new AC/DC album, Power Up. The final album I'm going to look at today, in fact, before we do that, let's just take another look at Rock T-Shirts by the Sea. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. So, number 6 on the ranking is For Those About to Rock. We Salute You. From 1991, the follow-up album to the mega-selling Back in Black, again produced by the very famous producer Mutt Lange, who brings his real melody and shine to the songs. But one thing that I think Mutt Lange was very clever with here with AC/DC, he still kept the grit, that rawness that is key to rock and roll. It was still there with AC/DC, but the polish to the songs and making sure the strong melodies were there created such brilliant albums, of which For Those About to Rock is one of them. And of course the title track is one of my top choices from this album. It's just a classic, especially when you see it live and the big cannons firing at the end. A great way to end a gig and a brilliant way to start this album. The next track I would choose is actually the second track on the album. I Put the Finger on You. Put the finger on you. Great song, real rocker, gets you moving type of song, and it's tough with all of these albums now. Like I said, with Power Up, even for Those About to Rock, it's very difficult to just choose 2 tracks, because it's full of great songs. Now, I probably ranked it quite high compared to a lot of AC/DC fans, and I think one of the reasons why some of the what we call the Brian Johnson era albums still rank highly for me, as opposed to some of the old school AC/DC fans where all the top albums would just be the Bon Scott era, is obviously the time at which I got into AC/DC. My introduction to AC/DC came in the very late 70s, and so Brian Johnson era was really my AC/DC, and the Bon Scott era was more what I was discovering. So I think that's why the Brian Johnson era albums are so highly rated for me. As I said, this is just my opinion. So there you have it. That's the end of part 2 of my ranking of the AC/DC albums. If you've enjoyed it, please press the red button to subscribe. It's free to do, and it means you won't miss out on the final part of my ranking of AC/DC albums, where I will look at the top 5. And until next time, remember, as always, we rock!